going on? Now, it's very difficult sometimes to find what's going on, and you have to go on and on till you discover it. The next question is why it is going on, and that's even harder to find out because, they conceal that for their own reasons. And the third question is what can we do about it?
There's this famous theory about the Pentagon, like 9/11 wasn't just the Twin Towers but also the Pentagon and maybe the White House. And this famous theory is like the hole is smaller than the whole plane and there were no rests of the plane left, so where's the plane gone? Nobody knows what is wrong and what is right and what is real and what is fake. And so do I.
The consequences of this are going to be huge, economically speaking, and of course insecurity and the fear and all these kind of things. So personally, for me, was a shock, and secondly, unfortunately, this event changed the economy of a lot of countries, and since that happened, my company, we used to sell, we sold a lot of cars to the United States. I mean, that was the main market, Volkswagen. So I could witness that we had to fire thousands of people because we couldn't sell those cars.
I remember when I was in Los Angeles and when I saw the first time this slogan, War Against Terrorism, I was on the street with a friend of mine and we saw it on a billboard for a newspaper billboard. And we were standing there and we looked and we couldn't believe it, and then we got there and we took the billboard as a souvenir because it was so weird. And now this term, war on terrorism, is, well, okay, everyone, it's just a fact. I mean, whenever you travel, when you're in Singapore airport or so, you walk around you, there are all those military people with guns and there is this threat of terrorism. Everyone can feel it now. It's just there.
9/11? Yeah. It basically let you know why the boys were getting sent to Iraq. Before George put the Bush, all his lies. And he was part of the movement over there, so he's basically lied to his own country and he's lied to us. It really did. That really got me angry.
And even on a very kind of specific experience, I was spat upon whilst I was with my young son in Birmingham City Centre, and I've never faced any kind of racism before.
After 9/11, basically, for me to do this on the street, I could be arrested as a terrorist, literally. And so it's a fear. And
lo and behold, there are problems. We've seen a rise in Islamophobia. We've seen Muslim countries being attacked on pretext of the war, on terror. And we've seen people from the Muslim community that feel insecure in raising their voice on lots of different issues.
It's certainly true that that their use of modern weapons, in other words, things like planes and mobile phones, to get, if you like, they're anti-West, but they use Western things, is a way of alerting us to the fact that we're full of ironies too.
Being visibly Muslim, my whole life actually did change. Living here in Britain, seeing Islam just talked about as a terrorist religion, it was like the two words went together, Islamic terrorism, Muslim terrorist, and I felt whether I liked it or not, I couldn't step outside of that. I'm a mother, I'm a psychologist, but all of that went out of the window after September the 11th. I knew the barriers that went up in people's minds. When I was talking to people, I knew it's as if I had to reassure them, actually, I'm not a terrorist.
We're fighting a brute empire in its most ferocious phase, led by its most ignorant emperor in the form of George W. Bush. And anyone who thinks that lying down in front of the juggernaut of George W. Bush will suffice will quickly be run over, I'm afraid.
Maybe a difference is that Bush is an elected president of a democracy, and so actually, as you said, that also gives the burden to wider people. I mean, that's a nation that elected that president and they re-elected them, and then we might not like it, but...
I don't know, it's just bizarre, and the whole thing of, after September the 11th we need to put loads of money into the defence budget for defence, read attack. It's like, we've been done wrong, so that means we have the right to make everybody else's life horrible. It's frustrating, and especially when you do think, we could, all that money that's being ploughed into new and improved ways of making people die when people are just going to die anyway.
If I were to turn it into the language of President Bush, Osama bin Laden made a preemptive strike against the United States. Now, the term preemptive strike is what Bush uses to justify attacking Saddam. But I suppose Osama bin Laden could say, this was a warning to America, stop your aggression against the Arab world.
The vocabulary that they use is somehow similar. On the one hand, for example, Osama bin Laden would say we are fighting a jihad, a holy war. And on the other hand, you would have Bush, who would call the war in Iraq a crusade. You know, one thing would be called terrorism and the other thing might be called self-defense, but in the end it's about fighting and about, you know, warfare and killing other people and defeating the so-called enemy.
I mean, actually I'm shocked. I thought this could have never happened, that that Bush could convince people with those weird ideas that he has. But more and more people believe in those ideas, and now those ideas become facts. It's really crazy. When I talk to friends of mine or so, then they say things like, oh yeah, there are these Turkish people in Berlin, and actually I feel really a bit scared now when I walk in there, because I have no idea what their relation is or what they think about me. And I mean, think about that. So there is this mood in a society where people get scared about other people.
In Holland was the killing of Theo van Gogh. Because then all of a sudden you got two sides, you know? The people, the original white people, you know, against the immigrants from Morocco, especially from Morocco. Or maybe even more like against Islam people, fundamentalist Islam people. And the other way around also, you know, all the differences that were under the surface, all of a sudden they showed up, you know? Like we never realized that these people never felt at home.
Those who are the age of our parents have certainly different memories of the former Yugoslavia. Those of my age, I mean, we just remember that we had friends of any nationality. I mean, when you are teenage, you don't really have a firmly established national identity, unless, of course, your parents have forced it on you since the day you were born. But we just remember having the friends from any of the Slavic tribes, having the same food, listening the same music, growing up more or less the same way, you know, rock generation.
And could that happen now?
I don't think so.
I went to Fairford in 2003, in March 2003, when the American B-52 bombers were going to bomb Baghdad. And I went there on my own with a teenage daughter and a high-8 camera, and I got arrested under the Prevention of Terrorism Act 2000. And I said, like what am I a terrorist? Wait, what is going on in Britain? You know, like what is going on that the Americans who move into a Gloucestershire village and decide they're going to bomb a Middle Eastern city, i.e. Baghdad, in our name? You know, what the hell is going on? And people were going into their summer parties, you know, they're drinking their wine, and Britain was at war. Britain was at war. It declared war on a sovereign state in the Middle East, and people in Britain were asleep. People in Britain never realised what was going on, you know. And what was going on was that we were bombing Baghdad from 30,000 feet from a base in Gloucestershire.
I do believe that reformist politics can achieve transformation. You know, some people say, oh, that's always compromise. It's never... But that's a very depressing thing if it were true, because it would mean democracy could never work, and I don't think it is true. But I think you have to compromise a bit to be in democratic politics. No one can have all their own way, like in any relationship or family or whatever. But if you compromise too much...
Well, yes, I do know everything about army. I know all there is needed to know. I know it from everybody's perspective. Yes, I know about army. I know about 2 o'clock in the morning with a young man breaking his heart on the pavement, breaking his heart in the cold of winter. He can't live with himself. He can't sleep at night. He walks the streets. He's calling himself all the filthy, horrible names he called me before he was sent to Iraq. Now he's back. 5 GBH, grievous bodily harm, 5 actual bodily harm since he's been back. He has a little child, 3 years old, just before Christmas, folks, and he can't sleep.
Well, after Britain illegally invaded Iraq in 2003, I refused to pay my taxes towards what I believed was an illegal and immoral and unjust war. And it was a very interesting experience, just saying 10% of my taxes goes towards military expenditure. And I refused to pay it because I think this war is illegal.
Well, Mr. Gandhi was famously asked by an American journalist what he thought of Western civilization, and he riposted, yes, I think that would be a good idea. And I think nothing much has changed. When we hear George W. Bush talking about a clash of civilizations, when I doubt if he could even spell the word civilization, Mr. Gandhi's words always come back to my mind.
غاندي ايه بنعرفه درسناه بالمدرسة بالمنهج تبع المدرسة الزلمة غاندي رجل الثورة والسلام الأبيض خصوصا أنا من هيدي المنطقة اللي أنا جاي منها اللي هي لبنان والشرق الأوسط هون أرض دم ومبنية على العنف والإلغاء وقتل الآخر. طبعا أنا كشرق أوسطي كلبناني كعربي كفينيقي كموجود هون على هاي الأرض طبعا مع هيدي الثقافة كاسة غاندي.
And to bring peace, the war was waged, isn't it? Purpose of a war, I would call WAR, worst act of reason. For every war, there is a reason. Without reason, nobody would wage a war. The voice of non-violence had to be loud and clear. Because see, violence cannot bring peace.
And non-violence is a very powerful force. Don't think it isn't force. It is the use of force, but non-violent force. And shooting people isn't the only force. And I think no one should be under any illusions about non-violence. It is a very powerful force, political force.
I am a non-violent person, yeah, but I reckon if we don't do anything against it right now, we're not going to change anything, yeah. If we sit up there, what are we going to do? Honestly, a jihad party is against something, yeah. It's not just standing up in the street and say Tony Blair is a fucking asshole, because what are we going to change? That's been going on for fucking 10 years, man. What are we going to change? Fuck all.
And non-violence, apart from not being physically violent, people should also be non-violent in their in all their actions and in their words and also in their thoughts, if they can get to the point where they can control them, because violence is not only a physical thing. If you get a situation where someone shouts at you very violently, it can hurt you maybe more than if they beat you up. It can leave emotional scars which last for longer, perhaps. Thoughts normally end up translating into actions anyway.
Everyone has power in what kind of attitude they take, most basically, and then in what they do and what they decide to support.
If you feel that this is wrong, you must protest, because silence means consent. If you don't do something about it, if you just said, oh yes, well it is awful, but what can I do? Yes, you can. You can stand up, you can go on a march, or you can write to an MP, you can do something positive, you can write to your local newspaper and do something. But do something, but don't just say, I can't do anything about it, because you can.
2 o'clock in the morning, on the winter's morning, a man comes to see me. He walks up to me and he asks me a question. Why are you here? I said, thank you. That's a good question. I like good questions. Why am I here? Stop killing our kids. Who are our kids, he says. I said, thank you again. Second good question. Aren't we doing well for 2 o'clock in the morning, eh? Who are our kids? Who are not our kids? Who are not? And we start talking about our kids. And our kids in Iraq and Afghanistan and Palestine and Cambodia and the whole wide world. All God's children, all the same, wherever born and naught's to blame. Stop killing our kids and stop killing their mums and dads as well, because kids need mums and dads, and stop killing their grandmums and granddads, because they're very, very precious, very important people to the children. And I talk about one of my kids, my Stephen, the apple of my eye, my little darling, my little dreamer, my little charmer, my sweet Stephen. And now, folks, he's learning to shoot a gun. At the age of 12 in the Army Cadets. Shooting a gun, learning to shoot.
Haim Hadi, 12 years, shrapnel. Kaher, 12 years, burns. Marwan, 12 years, shrapnel. Fatma Sabah Hashim, 12 years, shrapnel. Raad Azez, 12 years, shrapnel. Slam Khalil, 12 years, shrapnel. Ali Frek Almaswe, 12 years, shrapnel. Isir Mahdi Alabidi Alwaid, 32 years, bomb. Hussein Ada, 52 years, bullet in head. Hussein Khalif Karim, 29 years, bullet cut arteries. Ibrahim Altai, 40 years, bullet. Isam Sameh, 19 years, sliver in abdomen.
5 years.
Jafar
Nima
Radeh
Jawad Kazem,
Abed
5
Ali,
years. Sra Abd, 5 years. Lina Ali, 5 years. Skad Heder, 5 years. Abdul Khader, 5 years. Hussein Ali Hassum, 5 years. Ali Abed Zman, 10 years. Ali Sabida Jaber, age unknown. Ans Hamed Gnaud, 14 years. Anwar Kathem Hashem Alasbai, 25 years. Atea Abd Akban Alsbeder, 56 years. Almer Mohammed Jasem, 8 months. Abd Kathem Hashem Alasbeder, 18 years. Badr Hassan Jaber, 32 years. Bahar Ayad Katham, age unknown. Basim Ali, 35 years. May them rest in peace.